This is Ken Thomas.
And I'm Gabe Norris.
And we're with the Connect Ministries podcast.
If you're a church leader or a pastor who's ready to become more effective at meeting new people and assimilating them into the life of your church, this is the podcast for you.
Gabe, let's get started with today's conversation.
KT, how in the world did all of this get started? You remember all those years ago?
I do. It's been 18 years and been 18 great years, but man, those early days, I think back on what was really tugging at our heart. Even before we started Connect Ministries in 2006, we were involved in a local church plant and there in Nashville area, and we really began to see firsthand just what a real struggle it can be to meet new people in your community. In fact, you can have a church group, a core group, or maybe a church that's been around for a long time who really cares about sharing the gospel with unchurched people, but they look around and they're always with the same people. And it was really hard to see unchurched people come to know the Lord when you don't really meet them. Mm-hmm. And I remember we both, our families and other families, just really felt that struggle of and that burden of, man, how do we reach unchurched people if we don't ever get to know them? And we're thinking, how do we get outside of our the walls of the church, and really meet new people? So that's how Connect Ministries got started, was that real struggle. And man, over these years, we've heard pastors echo that same concern even today.
I know that Bill Hybels used to write about this holy discontent when God lets you see or hear or experience a problem firsthand, and I can't shake that. I'm so bothered by that I have to do something about it. And I know that's something you and I shared and our family shared, that God just really bothered us about what bothered him. I know Henry Blackaby's experiencing God has helped us both in different seasons of our life understand that the best way to spend your days is to move yourself towards God's agenda, figure out what he's bothered about so that you can have your heart aligned with his. And that's exactly what happened for me and you in that season.
Yeah, and even today, we still hear churches talk about this real struggle of, we look around our church on an average Sunday morning or maybe in weekday programming, and we kind of see the same people here. And, for ministers and church leaders, there is a responsibility to minister to those that are coming on a regular basis, but there's also that part of ministry where we want to see unchurched people there. And that was the struggle that we felt back then, and it's the struggle that we still see today, that it's the day of just kind of putting something out on the billboard or putting something out on the street and saying, hey, come to church. As we all know as church leaders, that day is over. For the most part, it's going to take a lot more effort. And so for us in Connect Ministries, we've just tried very hard over these now 18 years to walk beside churches who are feeling this burden and this struggle and offer them ways that we can help them meet those people that are not just stopping by and coming to church anymore.
I think when we first got started, we thought this is a problem that's related to church planters, because we were part of a church plant. And when you're in a small room with a small group of families, it's hard to meet new people. Mm-hmm. But then I think we realized when we started hanging out with churches across the country, this is way bigger than just church planter issue. This is what churches of all sizes are struggling with. And then years later, COVID came on the scene. People literally did life in a lot of cases without being a part of the gathering of the local church. And it only accentuated the problem. I mean, the problem just became louder and louder and louder. And we're living in an era right now where nearly every single generation alive is on the decline as it relates to church attendance. And that's creating a real issue for a lot of pastors.
Well, it is, because they look out in their congregation, look amongst their people, and they're thinking, what's this church going to be like in 15 years? What's this church going to be like in 25 years? And what will be the legacy of my time serving as a pastor? And so none of us in the local church would want our legacy to be, man, we just didn't really reach that next generation. And so therefore the church continued to decline. What Connect is wanting to do and what has been successful in doing over these years is coming alongside those churches and those leaders who have that type of a burden and saying, what if we did this and what if we did that, and put your people that you know love Jesus in front of people who really need to know who Jesus is, and let's see what God does in the midst of those types of relationships. And so it's been an unbelievable 18 years that Connect's been around, that we've been able to see those things, and we've been able to put a lot of things in motion over those years.
Well, that's what happens when you get bothered.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have a deep burden, you'll flat get after it in ways you hadn't gotten after it before. In fact, I'm sort of hoping that's one of the things that comes out of this podcast, is that maybe more and more pastors would have a shared burden around this problem of churches struggling to meet new people and plug them into the life of the church. Because when God grips your heart and bothers you for what bothers him, you'll get a lot more done than you're used to getting done.
Yeah, when you look around and you don't see new people coming into your church, and all of a sudden that's okay. That's a warning sign. And so hopefully, as Gabe mentioned, hopefully this will just really, it's just burden us so much so that we'll say, guys, we've got to leave the building. We just got to do it. And we need some help in doing those things. And there's a lot of different opportunities out there. But man, when that grips you, you get busy. And it's our prayer that church leaders will not just say, it's okay, that we're doing the same thing for the same people every week.
Well, I know that since 2006, we've been helping churches through different things that Connect's offered over time. We've done basketball races, basketball tournaments, and 5K races for a lot of churches. We've had tens of thousands of people participate in those two events.
Oh, yeah. And Connect kind of started out of a basketball, 3-on-3 basketball in parking lots. And we've done all kind of things to help the churches. I mean, you think about it over those years when we don't do basketball and race and Connect race anymore, but when we were doing Connect basketball, I mean, I can remember us having people win $10,000. You remember back in, I think it was in Leesville, Louisiana, contestant won $10,000 on a layup, a free throw, a three-point shot, a half-court shot, all in 24 seconds, and hit every single one of them in a row, and won $10,000. But that was all about just trying to help the church meet new people, and man, it gathered a crowd and gave the church a chance to meet those people that were there that day. But those were fun days. We literally saw thousands of people. I think we ended up seeing, in the last year we did Connect Race, I think we had about 30,000 runners who participated, and the local church was right out there, mixing it in with those folks. But yeah, we've done basketball race. We've also done a lot of camps.
Yep, we have. In fact, before we started Connect together, that was our background. We have been a part of camping ministry for many, many of our adult years. And in those days, we would invite churches to travel hours out of town to get to an excellent camp experience. And over time, we just realized, wow, it is really hard to help your church connect with local people in your community by inviting them to travel 3 or 4 hours out of town to get to a camp experience. And our whole thought was, we've learned so much about camp from coast to coast and some of the most amazing camp brands there are. Why not try to package everything we've ever learned about camp? And instead of inviting churches to take unchurched people hours out of town, let's be mindful of working parents. Let's be mindful of some skepticism that may exist between unchurched families and church camp type experiences. Let's be mindful of the number of people in a given community that aren't going to be able to go out of town to get to an experience like this. And let's package the camp. Instead of asking them to come to us, let's take camp to them. And so we started doing day camps in 2007.
And I remember, Gabe, when we first started talking about that, there were some folks that kind of thought, I don't know that will work. I mean, it was somewhat new. Day camps weren't new by any means, but the way that we were feeling God leading us to do those day camps was kind of new. And there were some folks that felt like, I don't think that can work. Like, how can you replicate that and have consistency in all these communities if you're not there to do it for them? And, if we are currently not there, but, God had laid that burden on our heart to say, hey, take everything we've ever learned from all the things that we've been a part of, and let's train and equip college students and 20-somethings to go to those communities and put on a remarkable day camp experience.
But that's a great example of what happens when God breaks your heart and gives you a burden. You all of a sudden are able to praise Him for a critic in your life, because the critic that would have been highly discouraging, because you've got a shared burden and because you're agitated in your heart about what God's up to, you don't let anything get in your way. In fact, those critics, they only fired us up even more to be faithful to do what God had called us to do. And I know having a burden impacts us all in different ways, but one of the ways it impacts us is when you're energized by a burden, you don't get slowed down by everyday obstacles. And we stood in the face of people that didn't think that this would work, but we just kept saying, what's the next right thing we can do? What's the next right thing we can do? And we were highly energized to keep going one step at a time. And at that time, day camps was the way to do that.
Right. And I can think through over those 18 years now, man, we've seen God do some unbelievable things through these day camps. And I wonder, had we just said, God, maybe we misunderstood, or the burden's not as strong, and vision is really unclear, and it really doesn't make sense financially. I wonder where Connect Ministries would be had we listened to that. And as leaders in the church, that there may be something God's birthed in you right now that you're saying, it doesn't make financial sense, or I'm not sure. There's a lot of critics that are telling us that we can't really do this. And we would just say, man, if God puts that burden in your heart and He gives you a vision to how to accomplish it, don't let the naysayers discourage you. Learn from them, and hear what they have to say, and just kind of move through it. But Connect Camps has played a remarkable part of our story. Yeah. And it's been awesome to be a part of. But the other things have happened over these years that we've seen God do to help churches. One of those is coming up, is Connect Conference, and that's something that we're excited about.
Well, we realized that as awesome as it is to have a basketball tournament come to your town, or a 5K race come to your town, or as awesome as it is to have Connect Camps come to your town, God has used those things to help thousands of churches meet hundreds of thousands of new people and plug them into the life of the church. We've learned that that's incredible, but maybe what's also equally as effective is just learning how to think about being the type of church that could be effective at meeting new people. And you don't necessarily have to bring in an event to be able to think like the type of church that can be effective at meeting new people. And so as we watch churches over all the country struggle with meeting new people and be really good at meeting new people, we really boiled it down to 4 ingredients. And those 4 ingredients were the common denominators of the churches that we were around that were really good at meeting new people. And so we're having a Connect conference in January to teach churches, church leaders, pastors, how to use those ingredients and apply them to whatever they're doing at their church. And if they'll use those ingredients, they'll be thinking like a church that's highly effective at meeting new people.
Yeah, well, we're excited about the conference. We're excited about that annual event that happens in January of every year. And we know that it has proven to be and will continue to be an event that churches who really are struggling to meet new people can be a part of, as they want to say, hey, we want to be better at meeting new people, and we want to be better at assimilating them. Let's come learn from leaders, church leaders that are doing it effectively across this country, and so that the Connect conference is going to be fantastic, happening every January. But we also have heard from churches that said, we need help in marketing.
Yep.
And that was something I know me and you would both say that was nowhere on our radar in 2006, that we would help churches with marketing. But that is an area that we're really trying to help churches through Connect marketing.
Well, churches realize that the day of sitting in your lobby and waiting for new people to walk through the front doors of your foyer, those days are probably pretty much gone. And so there is a world out there beyond the lobby of a church, or even the property of the church, or the parking lot of the church, that exists. And churches have to become better at telling their story out there beyond the church property. And the Connect marketing firm is a great way for our team to help churches think about how to tell their story in a digital space well before they even think about stepping foot on the church property.
Well, that alone, I know, if as church leaders are thinking about how are we doing in our social media platforms, how are we doing on our website, is it engaging? That's where they're going. That's where unchurched. If an unchurched person, for some reason, decides that they may visit a church, statistics are telling us that the first place they go to is our social media pages and our website.
That's right.
And if that doesn't engage them, then they're not ever going to step foot in your church. And the first sermon or experience they have with your church is literally going to be, most likely, by the statistics, going to be an online experience. And so we're helping churches meet new people online very, very well. And that was something that when we started Connect Ministries in 2006, we weren't thinking that would be the case. But obviously things have changed a lot in all those years, and so we're excited about that, and we're doing a lot of coaching now.
And some churches don't necessarily want to just come to a large conference where there's a lot of people. Some churches say, hey, could you just meet with me on Zoom, or could you just come to my church and help me think through my personalized plan at our church? And that's why Connect coaching exists. It's a way to have a smaller group setting with either a cohort or one-on-one, and specifically help your church think about specifically your church, building a plan to get outside its walls and meet new people.
I can think about some of the conversations that I've had with pastors and leaders through Connect coaching, and man, this has been invigorating to hear their successes and to be able to transfer some of those successes that they're having with other church leaders to say, well, this is what we're hearing one church do, and we're being able to share those things, but also to kind of help churches to walk through some of their blind spots. And we have that assessment, and the Connect assessment has been very helpful to churches in our coaching of churches to help them and help the church leaders really get a good game plan for moving forward, and walking with churches through their plan has been a real joy in the Connect coaching world of things. So, man, all of these things are things that when we first started, we never really knew how God was going to lead us and go. But we've seen God do some big things.
Well, Connect coaching and Connect conference right now, they both share an emphasis on teaching our 4 ingredients. That's what they're doing. So if you're the type of church that's trying to learn how to think more effectively, we have 4 ingredients to do that. And these are the 4 that we have. One is execute a clear plan. A lot of times when we ask churches, hey, tell us about your strategy, churches will either stare at us, begin to stutter, or say something that doesn't sound much like a strategy. The truth is, a lot of church staffs struggle to meet new people because they don't have a solid plan to do so. And even if the senior level leadership has a plan, it is oftentimes that the rest of the church staff is not able to also articulate the plan. Or if the church staff has a plan, oftentimes it's very rare that a volunteer base would be able to also articulate the plan. In general, churches struggle to execute a clear plan and build a clear plan. And if you're going to ever be great at meeting new people, it's going to take a solid plan to do so. And Connect wants to not tell you what your plan's going to be, but instead just give you the framework of how you can go about building a personalized plan in your setting.
Right. So we've helped churches with this idea of executing a clear plan as one of the ingredients, but also it's creating remarkable experiences. And churches that are effectively meeting new people and assimilating them, they create these remarkable experiences for those who come in contact with their church. Now, over these years of sharing these with churches and teaching churches, that that sometimes can be misunderstood to be, oh, that means we need to have big productions and lights and fog machines and all of those things. Well, that may be the case. In some instances, you want to do your large gatherings with expertise and relevant, but it's really about a mindset and a framework of thinking like a church who's doing things remarkable all the time. And oftentimes, it's the little things that don't cost anything, when done remarkable, that makes the most lasting impression on people who are coming in contact with the church. So we're helping churches understand how to be remarkable in all the different things that they do in relationships and in events and all the things that the local church is doing in the community and inside the walls of their church. And so that's been a lot of fun, seeing that light go off and church leaders to say, oh, we can actually be remarkable and it not cost us millions of dollars a year. And the answer is, you can be remarkable without having to spend probably any more than you're already spending in your budget.
So that's one of our ingredients. Another one of our ingredients is building a culture of life-giving relationships. KT and I have been just really moved by Ben Mandrell of Lifeway's recent quote. And he said, churches have gotten great at being friendly, but the truth of the matter is that people aren't looking for friendly people. They're looking for friends. And that's so true. We're living in a day where people are feeling isolated. There's such a lack of connection. Stats are telling us that teenagers, moms of young children, all types of ages, noted just feeling seriously lonely. And you would think that the church would be the very best place to build a life-giving relationship, but oftentimes people go to church and literally don't ever even get spoken to or speak to somebody else or meet anybody that they say, yeah, I'd like to hang out with that person on a random Thursday. And so if you're going to be effective at meeting new people in today's era, you're going to have to be one of the very best places in the entire community that you live in at going out of your way to meet people, building a friendship with them, getting them plugged in with other people, so that those people don't just find a church, they find their people along the way.
Man, it's just so important. And those building those life-giving relationships is really about helping people feel like they belong. And so it's been a joy to watch churches put together a plan to train their members how to do that, how to help people feel like they belong in creating those life-giving relationships. So, and the last ingredient that we've seen in churches that are effectively meeting new people is enjoying deep friendship with God. If you think about it, and if somebody actually gets on your social media or gets on your website and they do their research and they decide that they are going to actually show up at your church, and they come to your church and they don't sense any type of movement through God's people, that there's a deep friendship there with God. It just kind of feels like they went to the ball game, just like a big pep rally, but really no movement or no deep friendship there with God. What we've heard from churches is that those folks are just not going to come back. They're coming because they want to experience something there. They want to see in our lives as believers that something's really different about these people. They're bringing preconceived notions about the church. They're maybe dealing with hurt that they've had from being a part of a church. Maybe they're de-churched now because of a bad thing. They've decided to give it another chance, and they come and they don't sense there's anything different about the people that they come in contact with, and it's just kind of a dry experience.
It's kind of like the people that say around Thanksgiving, I can't stand turkey. And you look at them and you say, why? Why? Turkey's great. Why wouldn't you love turkey? And they say what you just said. It's just so dry. It's just so chalky. And when I bite into it, it's like, I need some gravy on that. And then you want to say to that person, well, you obviously haven't had a turkey that's been brined in bird baptism.
Yeah.
That meat church bird baptism. You get a turkey that's been brined in bird baptism, you'll have a whole
It's
entire...
totally different.
Oh, it's totally different when the turkey's been brined.
Well, and they get a turkey that's not been cooked right. They get a turkey that's been cooked to about 185 degrees, and that's why they have to drink about 3 gallons of tea to get the
And
turkey
makes
down.
people say, what's the big deal about turkey?
Turkey gets caught in your throat. It's so dry.
That's what it's like for unchurched people to come to church and be around church leaders that are dry as a bone. It's like watching walking zombies.
And the reality of it is for church leaders, and I know our audience can relate to this, the grind of being in the local church can just wear you down. And we're hearing this, seeing this, statistics tell us that, but more than anything, the conversations that we're having with church leaders. And I sat down with a pastor not long ago, and his conversation with me was, I don't know how much longer I can do this. And this is somebody who's been doing it for over 25 years. And the truth of the matter is, if he had another place he could go to provide for his wife and 6 children, he would go do it. Mm-hmm. And so churches that are effectively meeting new people are addressing this dryness, this grind of the church leader that actually trickles down to the members. And they're seeing some things change. And when that change happens with the leaders and then is filtered through the membership, people who actually show up at your church, they experience something different. They experience a movement of God that they want to be a part of, and they want to volunteer, and they want to show up and be there. And so these 4 ingredients, these are the ingredients we've been talking with churches about, because we've actually seen it over these 18 years through research that we've done, through conversations that we've had. These are the ones that are prevalent in churches that are effectively meeting new people. Execute a clear plan, create remarkable experiences, build life-giving relationships, and enjoy deep friendship with God.
This is Connect Ministries. This is who we are. This is our heart. This is our burden. And we're really hoping that this podcast will be helpful to you, that your burden and our burden will be the same, that our burden would be yours, and that these conversations could help your church get a lot better and meet new people and plugging them into your church.
Well, I believe that wraps up our time for this episode of the Connect podcast. Thank you for joining us. Join us again real soon.